Does anyone have any questions about Common Core at all? Like any questions that we might be able to help you out? Like, has anyone, have your children brought home any homework or home play, as we call it, that might be a little bit confusing and you need some insight into that?
While we're waiting for people to answer that, I will say that I'm assuming that a lot of people don't have the best impression of Common Core. I know when it first came out, there was a lot of negative commentary around it. But, after going through it, I have to say, I understand it now. It makes a lot of sense. It's actually a really good thing. The problem has been the implementation of it. Teachers, school systems haven't been equipped with the right information to adequately deliver the information. They're using these old methods and techniques to teach in this new way of expanded thinking. And so that's really been the problem with it. It's not such a bad thing. It is a long read, but it really does have a lot of benefit. It's a great guide.
I agree. One thing that Common Core is not a curriculum. Common Core is more an outline or a framework, and it allows people to have benchmarks of expectation on where a child should be by what age and what content they should have mastered by a certain grade. And then however you teach that, as an educator, is on you. So if you decide to use Singapore math, African math, Eureka math, any math you decide to use is fine as long as the learner meets those prerequisites. So that's, again, something we're going to be going through when we have more of the Common Core sessions. And as the class opens up a little deeper into the school year, we'll even start to get very specific on how parents can use African math methods in order to solve some of these equations or solve some of the challenges that the learners receive. To give insight into the African math program, the best thing to start off with African math is African numeracy. So we have a very unique and unorthodox numeracy program. We practice what's called the CPA approach. I don't know if you all are aware of the CPA approach. Again, we're going to go deeper into that. Please research it, concrete, pictorial, abstract. We're going to go deeper into the CPA approaches. Most math systems that are now coming into prominence use the CPA approach. Singapore math is definitely known for a CPA approach. And African math and the African numeracy program also is CPA. And then as you transition, once you have a solid foundation with African numeracy, then you can transition into the African abacus. And the African abacus is a phenomenal tool. Most of the videos that you see online are you'll see the learners playing a game called Mbili. Mbili means two in Swahili, and it's because the math game that they're playing is base 2. But what we've learned in our research is that's even though that's the indigenous math method that's used in the United States, they came from Africa. It's an advanced math system compared to the base 10 system that the majority of the world uses, the metric system. So we have an African abacus game called Kumi, which means 10 in Swahili, and it's because it's a base 10 numeracy game. So we can continue with the numeracy program throughout the learner's entire academic path. The African abacus is used to do computation in a multitude of base systems, be it base 2, base 10, base 12, base 20. It can transition easily between different place value systems. So that's why it's very important to get that foundation with African numeracy, because then it empowers the learners with a totally different approach to other math concepts. Their mathematical thinking and their conceptual understanding is on a heightened level in comparison to their peers because they have a very advanced device that's used to stimulate and encourage the development of those concepts through hands-on practice on a daily basis.
Awesome. So we have a few questions that have come up. I'll read this one, even though, yeah, I'll go ahead and read this one. The question was, is African math basically teaching Common Core using African visuals, basically teaching from a cultural perspective? And the person who wrote that said, never mind, she thinks we answered that. But I just wanted to give Baba an opportunity to confirm what the answer is.
Okay, again, so it's a very good question, actually. I want everybody to know that this whole thing with Common Core, and I stressed earlier, is about globalization. The United States of America is not the only country that has to have a framework and a list of expectations from its learners. Every single country that participates in these standardized tests have to have the same thing. South Africa even has a standardized benchmark system called the CAPS system. So we've had to study the CAPS system, and we've had to make sure that our curriculum aligns to their system as well. So I really wouldn't get caught up in the Common Core as much as I would be caught up in the cultural transformation of mathematics in the United States of America and the exchange of international math practices throughout the world. And so if you just go online, if you just look at India has the Vedic math system. Japan has the Soropan, which is the Asian abacus. And China, I think it's the Shusuan, which is the original the abacus that Japan is based off of. So it's the only international group that's kind of excluded from the contribution is the continent. Well, not just the continent of Africa, just African people and our indigenous math systems, which have been tremendously studied. And I can give you some details on, the libraries of books that have been studied in secret on African mathematics, because I've had to read most of them. And then my awakening and awareness based on the reading of those books have helped me realize that the very indigenous math system that's used here, that was used to build America, was brought here by African Americans. And then to even find out those very specific ties to ancient Egypt, which seems to indicate that somewhere in our ancestral line, either African Americans are directly or indirectly somehow connected to ancient Egyptians, because the depository of their ancient math methods is embedded in every single inch of the United States of America. It's inescapable. So even though we, as African Americans, lost our spoken language in exchange for the British spoken language, we scream silently every day. We sing a song of resonance that reverberates throughout every single aspect of this society, where our language and our mathematical language is embedded within the very structure of this civilization, as a reminder to humanity that we built it. So to me, it's a very intimate and sacred math system. It's something that gives me my language back, even though it's not my spoken language, it's my mathematical language. And it's something that I think the entire planet could benefit from once they learn how to speak it or think it.
Right. Okay, so another question is, please give examples or a place where we can view examples or videos.
Okay.
And I guess the
like
referring
videos
to examples of African math procedures and techniques. And I think that's part of what we're going to touch on in our sessions. But to get examples.
No, please, like Please elaborate on exactly what you like to see. Like, what examples of math would you like to see? Would you like to see addition, subtraction, multiplication, division? Would you like to see algebra, fractions? What aspect of mathematics would you like to see? And we'd be happy to demonstrate it in our next session. So just give us the information of what you would like to see, especially if it's pertaining to something that you find challenging to teach your learners as educators or parents. And we'll be happy to share what strategies or methods we would use to teach it. Now, just keep in mind that if the concepts are kind of advanced, you might need to learn the basic numeracy approach first to just get a good foundation so you can understand our methods and our approach, because they're a little unorthodox.
Yeah, and speaking of numeracy, and this kind of touches on the prior question about African visuals and teaching from a cultural perspective, I think one of the key differentiators about this program from others is our use of African numerals, and because the African numerals are visual, and they give the learner the opportunity to really see a value, as opposed to what's called a Hindu Arabic number symbol, which is the symbols that we're all accustomed to writing and reading. So that squiggly shape that is an 8, we all see it and we know that that's an 8, but what does that 8 really represent? What does that really equate to? And what makes up an 8? How can you see that a 5 and 3 1s are used to create that 8? Or how can you see that 2 4s are used to create that 8? And the use of the African numerals really helps not just the younger learners, but the older ones too, to have a new appreciation for quantity. So that's something that really, really helps. And it's something that, as a parent, I have to say, sometimes I know I've thought that my children understood something because I told it to them and I showed it to them, but there's a whole nother level of understanding that they don't often get. And one of the things that the African Math Games do is they help to show that. They help them to see, they help the parent, to see where they're not quite connecting a concept. Because, and to them, they don't even know that they're being assessed because they're in the game. So I really have found that to be beneficial. Yeah, we had another question. Maybe that's what you're going to now. Is would it be possible to give a quick overview of what is CPA? All right. So CPA, concrete, pictorial, abstract. We have a video here, and Bob is about to play it.
Generous support of our sponsors: AfricanApparelBrand.com, AfricanLearners.org, IloveAfricaBrand.com, and RespectWomanBrand.com.
And what's happening here in the United States that has caused a tremendous transformation in the culture of mathematics in general is something that's called the CPA approach. For those who might not know, CPA approach stands for concrete, pictorial, and abstract. If you would please do some independent research on the CPA approach, you'll understand why there's a change in the way mathematics is being done here in the United States. It's also the reason why Common Core is being implemented here in the United States. Again, CPA stands for concrete, pictorial, and abstract. Okay, so what I encourage you to do is, what I encourage you to do is go to YouTube. I would show you the video, but I think it's 7 minutes long. And I definitely, let's just call it home play. Do your research on it. We posted this video earlier this year. You can also do other research on the CPA approach. It's also called the CRA approach, which stands for concrete, representational, and abstract. So please look at that video, and then we'll discuss it more in the next session.
So our Are the weekly Thursday sessions for parents only? Are they for parent and children?
That's a very good question. At this point, we really want to get some. Here's the thing. It's a couple of things. One, we're concentrating on parents and educators primarily because it's a number of reasons. One is if a family has multiple children, like if a parent has a family has two or more children, and if we charge per participant, we charge $100, you go from $100 a child to now you're paying $200. So I know some people have that and it's not a problem, but some families might find that difficult. It's hard to find any supplemental math program in America that I've seen for less than $100 a month. I think that's as low as we can get. It's actually us lowering our rate, but that's something we have to consider. So we're focusing on educating the parents more so than the children, because then the parents can teach their children and their grandchildren. So we're also looking for serious parents who are just passionate about improving the quality of education for their learners. Now, what we will plan to have are maybe some African math play sessions where we'll have a group video where all the learners will meet over Zoom. That's the platform that we use, the video conference, and the parents will be there with the learners to basically engage and again join this community and meet one another and smile and laugh and play math games online. We do have a class, a very small closed class that we've been in for the past 6 months. But we've even learned from that class that the most valuable asset when it comes to educating a learner is the parent and the educator. We've seen that it's difficult for learners to truly get the full impact of educational experience if the parents are not involved. So that's our concentration for now.
Yeah.
But again, be involved and communicate with us, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, parent involvement again is key, and that actually is a great segue to the next question, which is the question is: can older children, say age 15 or 16, enroll into African math courses for the upcoming school year? My children are going into 11th grade, but still struggle in algebra. And I'm going to let Baba speak to that, but I'll just say that I'm chuckling a little because when it comes to parent involvement, we also have children of pretty much all ages, and some of the older ones have been doing algebra this past school year. They took some algebra courses, and officially that is a part of the curriculum that we are still developing for public distribution, but it is an area that we have been working in extensively, and this was definitely one of those times when I, as a parent who, I'll just say I have a math background. I took probably all the math that there was to take in college, and going back to algebra wasn't easy because I was looking at it from the perspective and using the methods that I had learned when I was in school. And because my children were now having to do algebra, and because I hadn't seen it for so long, I pretty much had to abandon those old methods and adopt new methods, which are the African math methods that we're developing, so that they could understand it.
To answer your question as well, I would first and foremost say that they're probably it's not that they're probably not struggling in algebra as much as the method in which algebra is taught produces struggle. So what I would like to do is, could you put our phone number in the chat, please? I want you to text me or either give us a call sometime tomorrow and see if we can discuss specific strategies. The only thing about algebra when it comes to the African abacus or when it comes to African math is that we use the African abacus to solve algebra equations, which means that they would, if they're 15 and 16, I think they would just need somewhat of a crash course in the African abacus and African numeracy, and then after they get that crash course in African abacus and African numeracy, then they should be able to transition that into an approach to algebra. But it would require them learning African numeracy and definitely at least learning Kumi on the African abacus before I would encourage that they move into algebra. But I also would like to say that based on that video we were watching early on, The Gatekeeper, all American children struggle with mathematics because of how it's taught. And I would encourage parents to kind of just, to feel comfortable with just visiting other methods and visiting other approaches and don't feel that, my child is getting of a certain age and they should be at a certain point by this age. Because based on what I see happening in mathematics, master's degrees in mathematics have antiquated knowledge banks. The way they learn mathematics is not the way math is going to be taught moving into the future, and it's an approach that doesn't service our children very well. So I wouldn't even worry too much about the approach that you've been taught up until this point and continually and aggressively, pursuing that approach. I would encourage being comfortable with saying, okay, well, let me learn something different, even if it seems like it's not where my child should be based on their age or their grade level. I would encourage one to really kind of abandon that notion and really just focus on learning more about these other programs and how they differ from the way we've been taught up until this point, especially moving forward into college. Now, I understand as a parent, you're concerned you have 2 learners who need to be considering college within the next 3 years. So again, give us a call and we'll see if we can just teach some numeracy strategies that might help them have a different outlook on mathematics and have approach. Again, that's why I want us to get together in these weekly sessions, because I'm sure a lot of parents have that same type of concern, and I want us to share strategies amongst one another where we can start to even practice and benefit one another in clusters and groups and reestablish that village approach, so we're not learning in isolation. But maybe Sister Crystal can share strategies, and it's other brilliant educators online that can learn some of these strategies and continue to share them at times outside of class.
Yeah, and I just want to add on, confidence is a really big factor. If they're not confident in their ability to perform operations and solve equations, then they're going to carry that forward with them. So what we really want to do is get them to a point where they can feel confident. So going back to the levels, they may not be on level 5, but maybe we can show and help them to realize that they're really strong at level 3, and then start building up from there.
Right, because math anxiety is a thing, and it's a serious thing. Sometimes children don't perform, not even just children, even adults. One of the number one indicators of a child being successful in math is just them believing that they can do well in math. So a lot of children they've developed math anxiety, and it's largely due to the approach that was used to teach mathematics. So you have to redefine that culture. If you see a child where it's time to do math and then you can see in their face that they dread. Please raise your hand if you have this experience. They dread the idea of that playbook coming out because they know it as a workbook, and they dread the idea of what is just a negative, experience. If that's your child, or if you knew children like that, then what we need to teach first is we need to teach them to want to do math, and that's a challenge. Yeah. Or at least teach them that they can do math and to be comfortable with math. To teach them ways in which to do math in ways that are fun and inviting. Yeah. So that would be the first thing that we want to teach.
Yeah, again, I just have to say, parents, it's really up to us, and educators too, but especially the parents. It's up to us to make those extra investments. And it's parenting is lifelong, but this is a stage that we're going through now, and we have to put in the extra work and the extra effort. And again, even if it's not through the African math classes, if it's your own research and your own investments and time and sitting down with your children, we have to do that to help them to be successful. Most people I know, and I'm sure there's a few exceptions, but most have to put extra effort in, especially when it comes to math. And so you're going to have to put in the time and energy some kind of way. So just continue being the great parents that you are. And I mean, you're already awesome for joining this call and taking time out of your schedules to join us tonight. So that shows that you're already committed and you want the best for them. So just keep that up and put forth that extra effort. It does pay off, but we got to make it happen. All right, let's see. Do we have any more questions here? I don't think so. So our phone number has been added to the chat if anyone missed it. Okay, if anyone else has a question, maybe you want to type it, or you can go ahead and raise your hand. We're here for as long as you all want us to be. It is 9:40, so we have definitely gone for a long time, but we don't want to cut anyone short. I will remind everyone that we will again be tuning in same time next week. There'll be a new meeting invite, a new registration. So we will do our best to get that out to you all as soon as possible. And if you can please share it and forward it to anyone who you know who might be interested. We're hoping that you will attend again. And when you come next week, please bring questions, examples. Again, it's hard for us to know what exactly to show you because there's just a lot out there. So we need to know where you are so we can meet you where you are.
And feel free, please invite others to participate. Anybody that you think can benefit from what we're offering here, please invite them to attend. Again, our whole objective is to build a community. Build a community of support and to have that support be continuous. So, and what I mean by continuous is, especially for educators, they know that as educators, you get professional development, maybe at specific times throughout the year, but rarely do you have continuous ongoing input feedback. We have a feedback loop as well as a support group that you can bounce things off of and continue to grow and share and understand a specific culture, a cultural approach. Also, we'll be here. I have a wonderful friend who used to be a math coach in DC Public School. He's well aware of the new program that's coming into all public schools throughout the United States of America, and that's the Eureka math system. And in a nutshell, all Eureka Math is Singapore Math. But again, it's a CPA approach. And once you start learning numeracy and CPA approach versus the old way of doing mathematics, you'll be better equipped to receive those home play assignments coming in, and you'll be better equipped to understand the more advanced numeracy practices that we have here at African Math. Our numeracy tends to get it can be pretty advanced compared to what you'll receive from Eureka Math, and it's the same in Asia. They have math practices that are part of their culture that are not being brought to America with Singapore Math, because they have their own abacus and they have other approaches that they use that America can't adopt, because if America adopts the Asian abacus, it becomes obvious that it's another culture. So America tries to pretty much stay very vague in an approach because it has certain history. There are many Americans who have a history that they've embraced that roots their civilization in Greco-Roman culture. And in order to root your civilization in Greco-Roman culture, you have to use math methods and other teaching strategies that exclude other cultures and exclude their cultural contribution. So there are many Americans who are committed to that type of approach. If anybody's homeschool practice classical conversation, there's a certain approach that they're committed to, which is more the rote memorization and the abstract application of math equations. That is not a numeracy system. So there's a disconnect between ancient numeracy systems and the more mainstream math system that we've become accustomed with. So I'm saying all of that to say, please, even if you're not coming solely for African math, even if you just come for support for your other math programs, the whole math culture is changing. You're going to be embracing a different culture of mathematics regardless. It's inescapable.
Oh, and speaking of that, I guess sometimes people believe that if one were to do African math, then they might be missing out on something and maybe not have maybe not be able to translate their African math lessons and knowledge to what they're doing in school or what they see on standardized tests. And that's definitely not the case. So we're not making up new procedures, and we're not redefining equations. We're just equipping them with tools and methods to be able to solve and to think critically to solve equations. So I just wanted to put that out there to make sure everyone knew that the methods that the children learn using this program are totally transferable. So we did get one more question. I do want to say that I also put up our Facebook, a link to our Facebook page. Not sure how folks got this invite, but please do check us out on Facebook because the next webinar information will be posted there. And also, if you have not been to our website, it is africanmath.com. And if you go to the website, there are a few samples out there. There's actually some members-only portions to our site. And if you request access to those areas, then we can give you a little deeper look into what we actually do. Everything that we do is not on YouTube. And the reason for that in a nutshell is because we ran into some issues where people were
they were doing some people had taken some of our methods and they were teaching them improperly, and they're not saying where it came from. So. Yeah, I mean that's their model, but but to teach the methods wrong is what I have more issue with than anything, because if you're gonna teach African math, it's important that you teach the numeracy system properly in preparation for the African abacus. So the question that was asked in the chat is, when is the African abacus introduced? The African abacus is introduced after the learner has developed a mastery in African numeracy, which doesn't take long. It depends on their age level. We have Sister Crystal. Are you still there? She might have gone. No, yes.
I'm right here.
Yeah. So, how long did it take before we started teaching Trey the African abacus? It was like, was it 2 or 3 months?
Yeah, I would say it was around 2 or 3 months.
Right. Do you think that do you think the African numeracy foundation was important before transitioning into the African abacus?
Absolutely. Because I tried to teach him how to use the abacus just based off of what I saw on YouTube. I would not suggest doing that.
Okay. So yeah. So you got to get African numeracy first. And but African numeracy is like, I think African numeracy can benefit everybody who's listening. I don't care what age you are. Because it's just a different approach. It's much easier once you learn it. Addition and subtraction becomes much easier. Multiplication, division becomes much easier. And then you're taught methods on how to solve certain math puzzles and math equations independently. And then once you learn that basic numeracy, the African abacus helps you learn more advanced numeracy concepts. It just gives you a tool and a device that you bring to life with your math awareness and your numeracy awareness. But it doesn't take long, maybe 2 or 3 months at the most, before someone can transition into the African.
And I will tell you what will happen is if you just try to teach them the abacus straight from the YouTube video, is that you end up taking the cultural part away from African math, and you end up trying to make them memorize it.
Because you're trying to retrofit the traditional approach that we were taught, when it's a totally different approach. I got it. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So it's not like, for instance, everybody here already has a math culture. We might not be aware of it, but we already have a math culture. So when you're being taught a new math culture, there might be aspects of the unknown, that by simply being aware of, that you don't teach. So the approach is incomplete. I think that's what she's saying. So you basically were trying to teach the African abacus based on the old way in which you learn mathematics.
Basically, because each hole in the African abacus has a certain number that's assigned to it.
Right. And it changes. Go ahead.
And I was just making him memorize what the holes were.
Okay. I got it. So it's important that you learn. You come play with us and learn a few games first. Everything we teach is through play. That's another thing that we want to make sure that parents adopt is a play approach. You believe it or not, you can get like twice as much. You can get twice the return with half the effort. You can literally get twice the return. Your child will learn twice as much, and you can invest half the energy, half the stress, half the pressure. Actually, there's really no stress or pressure. The approach really becomes more, come on, let's go have fun and play this game. It really becomes more about play.
All right, last call for questions. We're going to wrap up in just a second. Again, we want to thank everyone for attending. We really hope that you learned something, that you're able to have some good takeaways. We definitely hope to see you next week. But again, if nothing else, we hope that you found value in what you heard tonight. And we look forward to hearing from you next week.
Our number is in the chat. Feel free to take it down. If you have any questions, text us and give us a call. And we sign off by saying that we love you because love unites us all.
Thank you all.